silver to Beijing, and in London gold, Flick, which is kind of outstanding. Her discipline is paracycling, and she competes in the tandem time trial event. Do you want to come over here? Just up here. She's twice been named Blind Sportsperson of the Year in 2010 and 2011, and was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia in 2014, which is an outstanding achievement for so young. So, Flick, would you like to share with us your story?
Hi, it is a fantastic opportunity to be here today. I'm sorry, I just need to gauge how far away the mic is, and hopefully I don't bump into it during the speech.
Perfectly.
It is really exciting to be here today, particularly because it's 2016. It's an Olympic year and also a Paralympic year, and Rio is literally just around the corner. But Paralympians and Olympians don't just spring up overnight. They don't grow up or sprout up from the ground. You know, it takes a whole village to raise a Paralympian, or to grow a Paralympian, just like it does to raise a child. And basically, for me, I'll take you back to the beginning of my story, which is, as a young child, I was a particularly active child. I grew up in the Adelaide Hills. I did lots of exploring. I kicked the footy with my brother, played down the creek, rode my bike, wanted to be a normal kid. At the age of about 4 or 5, my parents realised that, hey, Felicity's sitting awfully close to the television, and when she reads a book, her nose is almost touching it. So basically, we began the journey to try and identify what was happening with my vision. By the age of 10, we finally got a diagnosis, because initially my vision is really hard to detect in its early stages. Fortunately, there was a visiting Canadian over here for a conference, and he was able to diagnose me with macular degeneration. I have the early onset macular degeneration, which is congenital, which basically means the retina, which is behind your eye, right in the centre, it's called the macula, and mine just doesn't work very well. And over time, it actually ceases to exist. So basically what happened was, with the diagnosis comes a lot of help, which is fantastic. So it meant I could access services, I could get vision aids, I could have an excuse for the fact that I wasn't finishing my schoolwork on time. But this led me to something really confronting for me, which is realising that I actually was vision impaired. Because for me, I didn't think I was vision impaired. I remember being passed a diagram. It was a picture of what I was supposed to see, or a representation of what I was supposed to see. And basically, if your macula doesn't work, it means that you have no central vision. It means that peripherally or around the edges you can see quite well. In the centre, it's really blurry. And I remember being handed this piece of paper, and it was a picture on the left of a park. Nice green grass with a tree and a swing. And the picture on the right depicted how I saw the world, which was a picture of a nice green grass and a big blurry patch in the middle. And I thought, what's that? Didn't understand. And the ophthalmologist pointed out to my family and myself, well, that's how Felicity sees the world. Which I didn't actually believe it, because for me, I could see the world because, for me, I was able to scan past my blind spot and make up the entire picture. And that was normal for me. That was how I saw the world. And I think kids with a disability, that's how they see the world. They are normal in their own eyes. And for us as educators and as coaches, aunties, uncles, parents, mentors, and co-workers, it's our obligation and responsibility to see outside the box and see that for these kids, it's normal for them to perhaps have a few obstacles in their way, sometimes literally, sometimes not so literally, and to change things or modify things to give them the opportunity to do sport, or to modify things, tweak things a little bit. It might be just a matter of getting them to have a buddy in a sporting competition, for example, or in a recreational activity, to ensure that they feel safer and they feel included and welcomed. So part of how I felt welcomed initially when I was 10 years of age is I went to a gym club which was put on by what used to be called Townsend School. down at Hove, and that was run by some fantastic coaches and also volunteers that really welcomed me into a really safe space to be able to explore my boundaries and extend myself and gain confidence. And it became really apparent quite early that because I was considered still quite high functioning for someone who was vision impaired, I had what was close to 660 vision. And just to let you know what that means, it means what you as regular people can see 60 metres away, I need to get up six metres away to see the same detail. So yes, I am blind in inverted commas, or vision impaired, as they say. So, you know, there's things that I couldn't do. Uneven bars was a little bit problematic, as you can imagine. Unfortunately, it also happened to be one of my favourite apparatus. So I went along to my gym club, my local gym club, with great excitement, but also I was terrified, to be honest with you, because number one, I was 10 years old and I was competing with girls or training with girls who had been doing gymnastics for a long time. But number two, I felt completely out of my depth because I wasn't in that safe space anymore. But my coaches made me feel really welcome. They gave me extra time to achieve new skills and to gain confidence. And I also had a buddy or a child that went to my school who could say to me when my gym coach was shouting from the other side of the room or waving, "It's your turn," when I couldn't see, and they'd go, "Hey, Flick, it's your turn, off you go," and I'd, you know, do my run up from the mini tramp and hopefully wouldn't miss. But I enjoyed gymnastics for quite some time, and that was great. Then came along high school, and high school was a different kettle of fish. All of a sudden, sport became a lot more serious, and netball was a great sport. And a lot of my friends were involved in netball. Netball was not really achievable for me. It was fine mucking around on the court, but to play a serious game was not really an option for me. I have great peripheral vision, so if the ball came at me on the side, I could catch it. But if it came from the front, and to be honest with you, you did get hit on the head quite a few times. And I'm glad you're laughing, because it's okay to laugh, because, you know, it's you know, shit happens, as they say. So anyway, so I digress. But basically, it becomes a lot more serious when you get to high school. And unfortunately, I spent more than half of my time sitting on the benches during PE, either daydreaming or feeling completely dejected or left out because of the fact that I wasn't included. I wasn't part of the clan anymore. I couldn't prove myself as a sports person. And I think things hopefully have changed, and I hear stories from people now. Things have changed a lot more in terms of how we approach assisting someone with a disability and in participation in sport. And I think we've got some way to go, but things are moving forward, which is great. I was able to compete in athletics, and I loved athletics. I love the feeling that running on a tartan track brings. I love the feeling of freedom running across an oval, and I was good at it. I was fast, and I loved it. I really, really loved it. I was able to compete at a national level with vision impaired and blind national championships, and also took things to the next level. Competed in the Asian Games and the World Champs. I wasn't quite ready to take that next step to the Paralympic level. Although I had the potential, I think there was too much going on in my life. I was studying and I was working and trying to do sport. And I think if I'd had more guidance or a mentor to say, hey, you know, let's do this, you know, let's go to Barcelona, I probably, you know, I would have, but I didn't. So, you know, that's life. I took a break from competitive sport, still stayed particularly active, did lots of hiking, surfing, although I couldn't necessarily, my wave selection was not so good sometimes. I'd often miss the good waves and get the crappy ones in. Lots of exploring, lots of hiking. I used to go mountain biking as well, obviously within the parameters of the vision that I did have, which meant I had to ride on quite wide single tracks, didn't ride on the road. The only thing was I had to ride quite slowly because of the fact that, you know, there might be a stick that jumps out in front of me or a rock or something that I didn't see. So in the year of 2004, I was invited by my local cycling club to come and a come and try day, and it was for tandem cycling. And my dear friend Kieran Modra, and for those of you who don't know him, he is synonymous with the Paralympics. He's probably going to be competing in, I think, what would be his 8th Paralympics coming up in Rio. We've done athletics together when we were little, and he said to me, "Oh, Flick, you know, you got to try a tandem, you'd love it." Which I felt a little bit, I wasn't quite sure, because I wanted to do a sport on my own steam. I didn't want to be reliant on riding with someone else on a bike. I wanted to achieve my goal my way. But I gave it a go, and initially it scared the pants off me because of the fact that riding a tandem means the vision impaired person sits on the back and the front rider or pilot sits on the front, and basically I had to relinquish control completely to this person on the front who was steering the bike. And so a few laps around I thought, oh, okay, settle down. And then as we got going, it was fantastic, just because of the fact I realised that, hey, I could go really fast on this bike. I didn't have to worry about the fact that, you know, I can't see that stick or that rock or that car coming out from the side street. So therein started, I guess, the beginning of my journey as a cyclist. And in 2007, I competed for Australia in my first World Championships in France with my pilot or front rider, Katie Parker, and we achieved a silver medal, which is fantastic at World Champs, and then we went on to repeat that in 2008 at the Beijing Paralympics, and oh boy, what an experience that was. I'd been exposed to World Championships in cycling where you have multi-disabilities competing in the same World Championships, not against each other, of course, we're all in our different classes, but just to see all those people from around the world representing their country, all different sports and all different levels of disability, it was a real eye-opener, it was fantastic. And just to see the fact that they just got on with it, they were making the most of their ability, they were using what they did have very, very well. Obviously with a huge amount of support, because it takes a lot of money, a lot of resources, and a lot of support from friends, family, coaches, all sorts. So that was amazing. And I remember standing on the dais after winning a silver medal and listening to the British anthem, and I looked up at the flags as they were hanging down from the top of the velodrome, and I saw 2 Australian flags flanking the British flag, and I thought, wow, I've got some unfinished business. So come London, I really want to be that person in the centre to be able to win the gold and hopefully beat the Poms. I don't say the word Pom anymore. I have a great respect for British riders, and I think the only reason why we did as a, team call them the Poms is because they were such a great threat. But I ended up actually riding with Stephanie Morton for the London Paralympics, and Stephanie's mother is Scottish and her dad is English, so she was, in inverted commas, from Pommy territory. So she very quickly told me, you can't say that, you have to say Brits. I was like, okay. So I learnt to say British, which is good, much more respectful. Steph and I often competed and trained together, but often spent time training separately. And the way I did the majority of my training and gained a lot of my fitness was to train on an ergo bike or an exercise bike. And for those of you in the trade, in the cycling trade and rowing as well, we call it ergo. So it's basically like a stationary bike where we do a certain amount of timed efforts. And there's a lot of data involved, so our power output is monitored, obviously our speed and all that sort of thing. And I found it was really difficult for me to be able to read all that data and to get the feedback that I needed at the time. And my coaches are often really stretched in terms of time and resources. They often go above and beyond the time that they are paid for. So at the Sports Institute, where I was really, really lucky to have a high performance scholarship, we'd often get someone from The Bath University have an exchange program where people come from Bath and come into the Sports Institute. So often some of those students would come and crunch the numbers with me and tell me to go faster, go harder, or all that sort of thing. So training, you know, I would have loved to have trained on the road, but for me, it's not how, you know, I was going to achieve my best. And Steph still needed to train on her own bike, on her solo bike at the velodrome, and we'd always come together for those really important, you know, times when synchronicity was paramount, because on the tandem, the key is communication, and the key is also that synchronicity and that synergy that comes with being on the same bike. Literally, you want to be able to achieve the effect of having one person on a bike rather than two. And as you can see from the picture, the profile picture of me, it's definitely very up close and personal. So you want to make sure that your personal hygiene is kept in check. And also you want to make sure that your pilot doesn't like to have baked beans for breakfast. Because, yeah, you'll find out about it later. So London came around 2012, and it was incredible. We went into London as the world champions, and we had beaten the Brits in the sprint and the 1 kilometre time trial. And to let you know about the 1 kilometre time trial, it's basically 4 laps of a velodrome. You're held in a starting gate, and it's a bit like being a horse, except for we had 2 horses because there was 2 on a tandem. So you're held in a starting gate, you get a countdown, you go as fast and as hard as you can for 4 laps. 2 laps is great because you get up to speed and you think, wow, this is fantastic. By the 3rd lap, you're dying. Your heart is pounding out of your chest, and also you've got so much lactic acid in your legs you feel like, you know, you've got tree trunks instead of legs. So it makes it tough. The last lap is extremely, extremely hard, but it's also fantastic when you cross that line and realise that you've possibly won. However, for me, I'm not a person who can see that I've won. I can hear an announcer saying something, and in London, the atmosphere was absolutely electric. It was so packed to the absolute rafters and very, very noisy. So I could hear the crowd cheering, but I couldn't hear the announcer, and I didn't have the breath to say, and I sort of didn't want to bother Steph at this point after she'd just, you know, done 4 laps the same as me. Hey, Steph, did we win? How did we go? Fortunately, we had won, and that was just a feeling of absolute elation. And the British girls were fantastic, and they were really humble in the fact that we'd won on their home turf. The cycling in the Paralympics was actually first in the program, so it finished quite early, and I had the privilege to go to many other Paralympic sports and experience that. And what was different about Beijing to me is that they seemed to embrace the Paralympics so much more. And I asked quite a few of the locals, you know, what is it about the Paralympics that you love? And I think British people in general, the British community, and also from a legislative point of view, they get people with a disability. They make things easier for someone with a disability to be able to just get on with it, which is fantastic, to be able to achieve their goals more seamlessly than perhaps we do. I think the Paralympics were also embraced really well because of the fact that there was a really good education program as well, and a good marketing program behind the Paralympics where it gave a backstory. And I'm not just talking about the sympathy vote that you sometimes see with Paralympic athletes or athletes with a disability, but you know, a really strong message about athletes, Paralympic athletes being athletes and training just as hard as their Olympic counterparts. Some people say to me, why aren't the Paralympics and Olympics joined together or amalgamated as one? And my answer is this, and it's quite a simple one. Logistically, I think it would be too difficult. I think that, well, firstly, there's not enough beds in the village. And secondly, I don't think the food hall's big enough, because although there's a lot of food to be had in the food hall, and it's vast, it is longer than the corridor that we walk down to come into the convention centre. I just don't think it's possible from a media point of view, from all sorts of point of view. But what I really loved about after the London Olympics and Paralympics, you know how they have a coming home parade or a ticker tape parade in every home games? In London, they waited for the Paralympics to finish before they had a Paralympic and Olympic procession together. And I thought that was just a great show of inclusion, to say, hey, we're all together, we've all worked really, really hard, and let's celebrate it. So I think that was extremely tremendous. Okay, so that's kind of my Paralympic journey. I would just love to say a few things that I do in terms of who I work with and what I do now. I've got a childcare background, so I've worked with kids, you know, since my early 20s, and I still work with kids now. And the gym club that I referred to, going to gym club at Townsend School in my early days, I actually help at SASV, which is the South Australian School for Vision Impaired, and I coach gym skills or a gym club there every week to kids who are vision impaired. And although some of them will say to me, oh, Flick, I can't do it because I can't see, in actual fact, that's not the real excuse to use with me, because A, yes you can, or you can at least try, and B, how about I demonstrate it for you? So I love going to gym club. I love seeing those kids gain in confidence, and my ultimate goal is to see them go to a normal in inverted commas, a regular gym club, or to gain the confidence or the skills to be able to move out there and rub shoulders with everyone else in the community, and also to make those kids in those regular gym clubs say that, hey, wow, we've got someone here who's vision impaired and they can do that, isn't that cool? More work that I do is with Seymour College during the holiday clinic. I actually teach kids to ride bikes predominantly, and just the feeling of, I don't know if you guys can remember when you got off your training wheels, but the feeling of that and the feeling of freedom that riding a bike brings, and I know that I'm biased because I love cycling, is tremendous. And I think being able to harness that in sheer enthusiasm is really fantastic for kids. And also, if we can take that enthusiasm and harness it, modify things, tweak things a little bit, and think outside the box, I think that it's going to be it is a really, really exciting place. And yeah, I challenge or encourage everyone, and I guess you wouldn't be here today if it wasn't in the forefront of your mind. So yeah, go out there and enjoy and be creative, and don't be afraid to make bold decisions and try something new. Thanks for your time today, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the day.